Brent S. Barrero looked at his watch again. 8:51 a.m. He had 9 minutes to get to his interview at Goddard Enterprises. The interview was at 9 a.m. Traffic was heavy. This job would pay 3 times more than his current job as a nursing home aide. It would give him and his daughter Emma health insurance. Maybe they could finally move to a better apartment. He was running late, but he would still make it. Then he saw a woman in a red blazer fall between 2 parked cars, her papers scattered everywhere. A black car was coming fast. The driver was looking at their phone, not at the road, not at the woman lying in the street. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel, and it proves that powerful stories resonate everywhere. Brent stopped his car at the curb and jumped out. He ran toward the woman. The black Mercedes was still coming. The driver's head was down, staring at a phone. Brent reached the woman and dropped to his knees. "Don't move," he yelled. The Mercedes kept coming closer. Brent threw his arm up and waved it hard. At the very last second, the car swerved around them and kept going. It never even slowed down. The woman was on the pavement. She looked about 40 years old. She had reddish-brown hair that was falling out of a hair clip. Her red blazer had dirt on the shoulders. She was holding her left ankle. Her face showed she was in pain. "Are you okay?" Brent asked her. "My ankle," the woman said. Her teeth were clenched. "I think I twisted it." Brent had been a medic in the United States Army. He served for 6 years. He did 2 tours in Afghanistan. He had treated hundreds of injured soldiers. This ankle was nothing compared to what he'd seen in the war. He carefully lifted the bottom of her pants and looked at the ankle. It was already swelling up. He gently pressed on different parts of the joint. He watched her face to see how much pain she felt. "Does this hurt?" he asked. "Yes," she said, "but not terrible. Can you rotate your foot in a circle?" She tried to move it. She made a hissing sound through her teeth. "Only a little bit." "I think it's sprained," Brent told her. "It doesn't look broken, but you need to see a doctor to be sure. Do you have someone who can come get you?" "Yes, I can call my assistant," the woman said. She looked at all her papers lying in the street. "But first, could you—" "I'll get them for you," Brent said. He stood up and jogged into the street. He picked up all the papers while watching for cars. The papers had financial reports on them. There were lots of numbers and charts. He brought them back to the woman and put them in her lap. "Thank you so much," the woman said quietly. She took out her cell phone. Then she looked up at Brent. "You stopped to help me. That other car didn't even slow down." Brent shrugged his shoulders. "You needed help." "Most people wouldn't have stopped," the woman said. She looked at what Brent was wearing. He had on black dress pants and a white and black pullover shirt. His shoes were polished dress shoes. "You're dressed up. You have somewhere important to be." Brent looked at his watch. It was 8:56 a.m. His stomach felt like it dropped to his feet. "Yes, I have a job interview. I'm going to be late now." "Then you should go," the woman said. "I can handle things from here." "No," Brent said. "I'm not leaving you sitting alone in the street with an injured ankle. I'll wait until your assistant arrives." The woman looked at Brent for several seconds. Then she nodded her head and made a phone call. Brent heard her tell someone named Marcus that she had fallen and hurt her ankle at the corner of 5th Street and Madison Avenue. She said she needed to be picked up. When she ended the call, she asked, "What's your name?" Brent Barrero." "Thank you, Brent Barrero," the woman said. "I really mean that." They sat there together, without talking much. The woman stayed on the pavement. Brent stayed crouched next to her. He kept looking at his watch over and over. 8:57, 8:58, 8:59. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. A young man wearing a business suit jumped out of the driver's seat. He rushed over to them. "Ms. Goddard, are you all right?" "I'm fine, Marcus," the woman said. "It's just a sprained ankle. Help me get to the car." Brent stood up and stepped back. Marcus helped the woman stand up on just her right foot. She hopped on one foot while leaning on Marcus's shoulder. They moved slowly toward the SUV. Before she got into the vehicle, the The woman turned her head and looked back at Brent. "Good luck with your interview," she said. "Thank you," Brent said. But he already knew that luck wouldn't help him now. He ran back to his car and got in. He drove as fast as he could without breaking the law. He kept checking the clock on his dashboard. 9:02. He was already late. Goddard Enterprises had its offices on floors 12 through 15 of a tall glass building in downtown. Brent found a parking garage 2 blocks away from the building. He parked his car and then ran the entire 2 blocks. His dress shoes made loud slapping sound on the sidewalk. He pushed through the glass doors of the lobby at 9:08 a.m. He was sweating even though the morning air outside was cool. He took the elevator to the 12th floor. When the doors opened, he walked quickly to the reception desk. The receptionist was a young woman who looked about 25 years old. She wore wire-rimmed glasses. Her expression was neutral and professional. "I'm Brent Barrero," he said. He was still breathing hard from running. "I have a 9 o'clock interview for the senior operations manager position." "You're late, Mr. Barrero," the receptionist said. Her voice was flat. "I know. I'm sorry. There was an emergency. A woman was injured in the street, and I had to—" "Ms. Goddard is very particular about punctuality," the receptionist interrupted him. "She's already in a meeting with the other finalists for the position." Brent felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. All the air went out his lungs. "Is there any chance I could still interview after she finishes with the other person?" The receptionist picked up her phone. She spoke quietly into it for about 30 seconds. Then she hung up the phone and looked at Brent again. "Have a seat in the waiting area," she said. "Ms. Goddard will decide whether she wants to see you after her current meeting is over." "Thank you," Brent said. He walked over to the waiting area and sat down in one of the leather chairs. His hands were shaking slightly. It wasn't because he was nervous about the interview. It was because the adrenaline from saving the woman in the street was wearing off now. He sat there and thought about Emma. Emma was his 8-year-old daughter. When he had told her about this interview, she had been so excited. She had made him a good luck card using her crayons. The card showed a stick figure drawing of him wearing a tie. He was standing next to a tall building. At the top of the card, Emma had written Daddy's new job in her messy child handwriting. Brent had pinned that card to their refrigerator with a magnet. The job posting for this position had said the salary range was $90,000 to $120,000 per year. Right now, Brent made $31,000 per year. He worked as a nurse's aide at Maple Grove Retirement Home. He picked up double shifts whenever the nursing home would let him work extra hours. But no matter how much he worked, it was never enough money. Emma needed new shoes. Her toes were cramped and squeezed in her current shoes because her feet had grown. Their apartment building had a heating system that barely worked. During winter, they had to use space heaters and wear extra layers of clothing inside. Last month, Brent had to make a choice between paying the electric bill on time or buying groceries for the month. He chose to buy groceries because Emma needed to eat. This job would have solved all of those problems. The salary would have been enough. They could have lived a normal life. Emma could have had the things she needed. Would have. Past tense. All in the past now. And it was past tense because Brent had stopped to help a complete stranger in the street. Brent leaned back in the leather chair and closed his eyes. He didn't regret stopping to help that woman. He couldn't regret it. The United States Army had trained him for 6 years to help people who were injured. The Army had trained him to stabilize wounded people. The Army had trained him to never leave anyone behind who needed help. That training and those values were in his bones now. They were part of who he was as a person. But Emma's face kept appearing in his mind. Her hopeful smile when he told her about the interview. Her excitement about maybe moving to a better apartment. And Brent couldn't stop wondering if he had just failed her in the worst possible way. The minutes crawled by slowly. Each minute felt like an hour. 9:15 a.m., then 9:30 a.m., then 9:45 a.m. At exactly 9:52 a.m., the elevator doors opened. A tall man stepped out. He wore an expensive gray suit that probably cost more than Brent made in a month. The man was about 6 feet 2 inches tall. His dark hair was styled perfectly. He walked with confidence and an air of superiority. He nodded at the receptionist as he passed her desk. "Excellent meeting," the man said. He spoke loudly enough for Brent to hear him clearly. "I think Ms. Goddard and I are very much aligned on the company's future direction." The receptionist gave him a polite smile. Brent looked at the visitor badge clipped to the man's suit jacket. The name on the badge was Julian. Julian glanced over at Brent as he walked past the waiting area. Julian's lips curled into a smirk. "Better luck next time," Julian said. He said it just loud enough for Brent to hear. Brent didn't respond. He just sat there and watched Julian walk to the elevator and disappear inside. Then Brent checked his watch again. 9:54 a.m. The receptionist's phone buzzed. She picked it up and listened to whoever was on the other end. Then she hung up and looked across the room at Brent. "Ms. Goddard will see you now," the receptionist said. "Conference room A. Go down the hallway to your left." Brent stood up from the leather chair. He straightened his pullover shirt. Then he walked down the hallway. His legs felt heavy, like they were made of concrete. Conference room A was impressive. It had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the entire city. There was a long conference table in the center of the room. 8 leather chairs were arranged around the table. And sitting at the head of the table was the woman in the red blazer. Brent stopped walking. He stood frozen in the doorway. He couldn't move his feet. The woman looked up from the papers in front of her. When she saw Brent, something flickered across her face. It might have been surprise, or maybe recognition. Her left ankle was propped up on a second chair. The ankle was wrapped in an elastic bandage. The papers that Brent had gathered from the street were stacked neatly on the table in front of her. "Mr. Barrero," the woman said, "please sit down." Brent's brain was working frantically as he walked to the chair she had indicated. The chair was halfway down the long table. Ms. Goddard. The receptionist had called this woman Ms. Goddard, Sandra Goddard. She was the CEO of Goddard Enterprises. He had saved the CEO. For just a moment, hope came back to life in Brent's chest. She would remember that he was a good person. She would see that he had integrity and character. She would recognize that he had put her safety ahead of his own interests. She would probably hire him on the spot. But the expression on Sandra Goddard's face was not warm or grateful. Her face looked neutral and cold. It was completely professional and businesslike. "I understand you were late this morning because you stopped to help someone who was injured," Sandra said. "Yes, ma'am," Brent said. "I didn't realize it was you until just this moment." "Marcus told me what you did after he picked me up," Sandra said. "You gathered all of my papers from the middle of the street while watching for traffic. You waited with me until I had a ride. You made sure I was safe before you left." "Anyone would have done the same thing," Brent said. "No," Sandra said quietly. "They wouldn't have." She paused and looked down at the papers on the table. That other car didn't stop. The black Mercedes. They didn't even slow down when they saw me fall. "I saw that too," Brent said. "It was very dangerous. You could have been seriously hurt." Sandra was quiet for a long moment. She seemed to be thinking about something. Then she looked up at Brent again. Her expression was still hard to read. "Tell me about yourself, Mr. Barrero," she said. "Why do you want this job?" Brent took a deep breath. This was his chance. It might be his only chance to save this interview. "I'm a single father," Brent began. "My daughter Emma is 8 years old. Her mother left us when Emma was only 2. I work as a nurse's aide at Maple Grove Retirement Home. I make $31,000 a year. I work double shifts whenever they let me, but it's never enough money." He stopped talking for a moment. He looked down at his hands. They were rough and calloused from years of physical work. "Emma needs so many things that I can't provide for her," Brent continued. "She needs new shoes because her feet have grown. She needs to live in a warm apartment instead of one with broken heating. She needs to see a doctor when she gets sick, but I can't afford the medical bills. I haven't been able to take her to a dentist in 2 years because I don't have dental insurance. This job would change our entire lives. It would let me be the kind of father that Emma deserves to have." Sandra listened to everything Brent said without interrupting him once. When he finished speaking, she was quiet for a moment. "You have military experience. Sandra said. It wasn't phrased as a question. She was stating a fact. Yes, ma'am, Brent said. 6 years in the United States Army. I was a combat medic. I did 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan. That's where you learned your medical training. Yes, ma'am. And that's why you stopped to help me this morning. Because of your medical training. Partly because of my training, Brent said, but also because it was the right thing to do. Sandra looked at Brent for a long time. She seemed to be studying his face, trying to determine if he was telling the truth or not. You knew that stopping to help me would make you late for this interview, Sandra said. You knew that being late might cost you this job, but you stopped anyway. Yes, ma'am. Why? Sandra asked. Why did you make that choice? Brent thought carefully about how to answer the question. He wanted to be honest. Because my daughter Emma is always watching me, Brent said. Everything I do teaches her something about how to live in this world. If I had driven past someone who needed help just so I could get to an interview on time, what would that teach Emma? It would teach her that money is more important than helping people. That success is more important than doing what's right. That's not the lesson I want her to learn. That's not who I want her to become. Even if it means you stay poor? Sandra asked. The question stung. It hurt to hear it said out loud like that. I don't want to stay poor, Brent said. That's why I applied for this job. That's why I'm sitting here right now. But I would rather be poor and honest than be rich and be the kind of person who drives past people who are lying injured in the street. Sandra's expression didn't change. That's a very noble sentiment, Mr. Barrero. But nobility doesn't pay the rent. Noble feelings don't put food on the table. I know that, Brent said. Do you regret stopping to help me? Sandra asked. No, Brent said immediately. Not even a little bit? Brent thought about it. He really considered the question honestly. No, he said again. If I had gotten this job by driving past you and leaving you injured in the street, I would hate myself. I would hate myself every single time I looked at Emma's face. Sandra nodded slowly. She wrote something on a notepad in front of her. Then she said, Tell me about your work experience at the nursing home. For the next 20 minutes, Sandra asked Brent questions about his job. Brent explained that he managed schedules for 12 nurses' aides. He coordinated with doctors and families. He had reduced medication errors by 30% in his first year by implementing a new tracking system. He had improved patient satisfaction scores significantly. Sandra took notes while he talked. She asked detailed follow-up questions. She seemed genuinely interested in his answers. Then Sandra said, I see that you took some business classes at community college. Yes, ma'am, Brent said. I've been taking 1 class per semester. I can't afford to go full-time because I have to work. But I've completed courses in accounting, operations management, and business statistics. While working full-time and raising a daughter alone, Sandra said. Yes, ma'am. Sandra made another note on her pad. Then she put down her pen and folded her hands on the table. Mr. Barrero, I'm going to be very direct with you, Sandra said. The other candidate who interviewed before you has an MBA from Harvard. He has 10 years of experience at Fortune 500 companies. His resume is extremely impressive. Why should I hire you instead of him? Brent felt his heart sink. Julian had an MBA from Harvard. Of course he did. Brent had never even finished his associate's degree. But he answered the question honestly. I can't compete with an MBA from Harvard, Brent said. I can't match 10 years at big companies. But I can promise you something that no resume can show. I will work harder than anyone else. I will be loyal to this company. I will treat every task like it matters because to me, it does matter. Everything I do here will be for Emma, to give her a better life. That kind of motivation doesn't come from a fancy degree. It comes from having something real to fight for. Sandra's expression finally changed. Just slightly. The corner of her mouth moved. It might have been the start of a smile. Thank you, Mr. Barrero, Sandra said. I'll be in touch within 24 hours with my decision. Brent stood up. He shook Sandra's hand. Then he walked out of the conference room, down the hallway, past the receptionist, and into the elevator. As the elevator doors closed, Brent let out a long breath. He had no idea if he had done well or poorly. He had no idea if he still had a chance at this job. All he could do now was wait. Listen, if you're still here, it means you're invested. You want to see what happens next. But here's the reality. Most people watch stories like this and scroll away without subscribing. They enjoy it, then vanish. If this story actually matters to you, if you genuinely care about how it ends, hit that subscribe button. It only takes a second. Otherwise, you'll probably forget this channel exists and miss all the other incredible stories I share. Brent drove home in a daze. He kept replaying the interview in his mind. He tried to remember every question Sandra had asked. He tried to analyze every expression on her face. When he got home, Emma was waiting for him. She was staying with Mrs. Chun from next door. Mrs. Chun was a retired grandmother who sometimes watched Emma when Brent had to work or had appointments. "Daddy," Emma shouted when Brent walked into Mrs. Chen's apartment. "How was your interview?" Brent picked Emma up and hugged her. "It was interesting, sweetheart. I won't know anything for a day or two, but you're going to get the job, right?" Emma asked. Her eyes were wide and hopeful. "I don't know," Brent said honestly. "I hope so, but we have to wait and see." That evening, Brent made dinner for Emma. They had spaghetti with sauce from a jar. While Emma did her homework at their small kitchen table, Brent cleaned up the dishes. He kept checking his phone, even though he knew it was too soon to hear anything. Emma went to bed at 8:30. Brent tucked her in and read her a story. Then he went to the living room and sat on the couch. He turned on the television but didn't really watch it. His mind was somewhere else. What would he do if he didn't get this job? He'd have to keep working at the nursing home, keep struggling to pay bills, keep disappointing Emma every time she asked for something he couldn't afford. Maybe stopping to help Sandra had been a mistake. Maybe he should have driven past her like Julian did. Maybe Julian would get the job because he had made the smart choice instead of the moral choice. Brent fell asleep on the couch around 11 o'clock. He dreamed about Emma's disappointed face. His phone rang at 7:30 the next morning. Brent was getting Emma ready for school. He looked at the screen. It was a number he didn't recognize. "Hello?" Brent answered. "Mr. Barrero, this is Sandra Goddard." Brent's heart started pounding. "Hello, Miss Goddard. I'd like you to come back to the office this morning," Sandra said. "Can you be here at 9? "Yes," Brent said immediately. "Absolutely." "Good. I'll see you then." She hung up. Brent stared at his phone. She wanted him to come back. Was that good news or bad news? He had no idea. He dropped Emma off at school. Then he drove to Goddard Enterprises. He was wearing the same outfit as yesterday. It was his only interview outfit. When he got to the 12th floor at 8:55 a.m., the receptionist told him to go straight to conference room A. Brent walked down the hallway. His palms were sweating. He opened the door to the conference room. Sandra was sitting at the head of the table again. Her ankle was still bandaged. But this time, there was someone else in the room. Julian, the man from yesterday. He was sitting in one of the chairs halfway down the table. He looked confused about why he was there. "Mr. Barrero, please sit down," Sandra said. She gestured to a chair on the opposite side of the table from Julian. Brent sat down. He looked at Julian. Julian looked back at him with an expression that said, "What are you doing here?" Sandra folded her hands on the table. "Gentlemen, thank you both for coming this morning. I wanted to speak with you both at the same time because I've made my decision about who to hire for the senior operations manager position." Julian sat up straighter. He smiled confidently. Brent's stomach was in knots. "Before I announce my decision, I want to show you both something," Sandra said. She picked up a remote control and pointed it at a screen on the wall. The screen turned on. "Yesterday morning, I was reviewing security footage from outside our building," Sandra continued. "Our security cameras cover all the streets around this block. I wanted to see the accident that made me late for work, and I found something very interesting." She pressed a button on the remote. The screen showed black and white security footage. It was clearly from yesterday morning. The timestamp in the corner said 8:55 a.m. The footage showed Sandra falling on the sidewalk. It showed her papers scattering into the street. It showed Brent's car pulling over and Brent running to help her. And then it showed another car, a black Mercedes. The car was approaching the scene. The car could clearly see Sandra on the ground. The car could clearly see Brent kneeling next to her. The Mercedes didn't slow down. It swerved around them and kept going. The camera angle changed. Now it showed a view that captured the license plate of the Mercedes. And it showed a clear view through the windshield. The driver of the Mercedes was Julian. Julian's face went pale. All the color drained out of his skin. "Mr. Whitmore," Sandra said, looking at Julian, "that's you driving the car, isn't it?" Julian opened his mouth. Then he closed it. Then he opened it again. I didn't see her. I was watching the road and... "The footage clearly shows you looking directly at us," Sandra said. Her voice was ice cold. "You saw me fall. You saw Mr. Barrero stop to help me. And you made a choice. You chose to keep driving. You chose to arrive at your interview on time instead of stopping to see if I needed help." "Ms. Goddard, I can explain." Julian started. "There's nothing to explain," Sandra interrupted. "The footage shows everything I need to see. It shows your character, Mr. Whitmore. And I am not interested in hiring someone with your character." Julian stood up. His face was red now instead of pale. "You can't be serious. I have an MBA from Harvard. I have 10 years of experience. You're going to hire some low-level nursing home worker instead of me." "Yes," Sandra said simply. "That's exactly what I'm going to do." She turned to look at Brent. "Mr. Barrero, I'd like to offer you the position of Senior Operations Manager at Goddard Enterprises. The salary is $120,000 per year, plus full benefits including health insurance and dental coverage." Brent couldn't breathe. He couldn't speak. He just sat there staring at Sandra. "You made a choice yesterday morning, Mr. Barrero," Sandra continued. "You chose to help a stranger even though it cost you something important. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. That's the kind of person I want working for me. That's the kind of person I want leading teams in my company." Julian slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. You're hiring him because he helped you? That's nepotism." "No, Mr. Whitmore," Sandra said. She stood up, balancing on her good foot. "I'm hiring him because when he had to choose between his own interests and doing the right thing, he chose to do the right thing. You had the same choice. You chose differently. Now, please leave my building. Security will escort you out." As if on cue, 2 security guards appeared at the door. Julian looked at them, then at Sandra, then at Brent. His face was twisted with anger. He grabbed his briefcase and stormed out of the room. When Julian was gone, Sandra sat back down. She looked at Brent. "Do you accept the offer, Mr. Barrero?" Brent finally found his voice. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much." Sandra smiled. It was the first real smile Brent had seen from her. "Good. We'll need you to fill out some paperwork with HR. You can start on Monday." Brent stood up. His legs felt shaky. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Sandra said. "You already showed me who you are. That's enough." She extended her hand. Brent shook it. "There's one more thing I want you to understand," Sandra said. "You were worried that your habit of helping people was a weakness. You thought it was a thing keeping you poor. But you were wrong, Mr. Barrero. Your integrity isn't your weakness. It's your greatest strength. That's what will make you successful here." Brent felt tears starting to form in his eyes. He blinked them back. "Now go home and tell Emma the good news," Sandra said. "I'm sure she's been waiting to hear." Brent nodded. He couldn't trust himself to speak without his voice breaking. He walked out of the conference room, down the hallway, and into the elevator. When the elevator doors closed and he was alone, he finally let the tears come. They were tears of relief, tears of joy, tears of gratitude. He had done the right thing. And for once, the right thing had led to reward instead of sacrifice. Brent drove straight to Emma's school. He signed her out early, telling the office there was a family emergency. When Emma came to the office looking worried, Brent was grinning. "What's wrong, Daddy?" Emma asked. "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart," Brent said. "Something's very, very right. I got the job. Emma's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Brent said. We're going to be okay now, Emma. We're going to be more than okay. Emma threw her arms around his neck and hugged him as hard as she could. That afternoon, Brent took Emma out for ice cream. It was a small celebration, but it felt huge. As they sat in the ice cream shop, Emma kept smiling at him. I'm proud of you, Daddy, Emma said. I'm proud of you too, sweetheart, Brent said. Why are you proud of me? Emma asked. You're the one who got the job. I'm proud of you because you never complained, Brent said. Even when things were hard, even when we didn't have much. You stayed happy and kind. You're an amazing kid, Emma. Emma ate her ice cream and swung her legs under the table. Daddy, can I ask you something? Of course. When we get more money, can we still be the same? Emma asked, can we still be us? Brent felt his heart squeeze in his chest. Yes, sweetheart, we'll always be us. Money doesn't change who we are. It just makes things a little easier. Emma nodded. She seemed satisfied with that answer. That evening, Brent called his younger sister Maria. She lived 3 states away. When he told her about the job, she started crying happy tears. I knew something good would happen for you, Brent, Maria said. You deserve this. You've worked so hard for so long. It almost didn't happen, Brent said. I was late to the interview because I stopped to help someone. He told Maria the whole story. About Sandra falling, about stopping to help her, about Julian driving past, about the security footage. When he finished, Maria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Mom and Dad would be so proud of you. Brent's parents had both died in a car accident 5 years ago. He still missed them every day. I hope so, Brent said. I know so, Maria said. They raised you to do the right thing even when it's hard. And that's exactly what you did. That night, after Emma was asleep, Brent sat on a couch and let himself really think about what had happened. For years, he had believed that his habit of helping people was a character flaw. Every time he stopped to help someone, it seemed to cost him something. Time, money, opportunities. He had started to think that maybe he needed to be more selfish, more focused on his own interests, more like Julian. But he had been wrong. His integrity hadn't been holding him back. It had been preparing him for this moment. Sandra Goddard hadn't hired him in spite of helping her. She had hired him because he helped her. She had hired him because he was willing to sacrifice his own interests to do what was right. All those years of struggling hadn't been wasted. They had been building his character. They had been teaching him what truly mattered. They had been preparing him to be the kind of person who would stop instead of drive past. And now, finally, that choice had led to something good. Brent thought about Emma, about the life he could give her now. New shoes that fit properly, a warm apartment, regular doctor visits, maybe even saving for college someday. But more important than any of that, he had shown Emma what really mattered. He had shown her that doing the right thing was more important than money or success. He had shown her that integrity wasn't a weakness. It was a strength. That was worth more than any salary. Brent pulled out his phone and looked at the photo he had taken of Emma's good luck card, the stick figure of him standing next to the building. Daddy's new job, written in crayon. Emma had believed in him when he barely believed in himself. She had been right to believe. Brent set his phone down and leaned back on the couch. For the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. Not just hope for a better future, but certainty. Certainty that he had made the right choices. Certainty that being a good person actually mattered. Certainty that he would be able to give Emma the life she deserved. On Monday, Brent would start his new job. He would work hard. He would prove that Sandra's faith in him was justified. He would be the kind of employee who deserved that $120,000 salary. But tonight, he just sat on the couch and felt grateful. Grateful that he had stopped to help Sandra. Grateful that his integrity had finally led to reward instead of sacrifice. Grateful that Emma would never again have to wear shoes that were too small or live in an apartment that was too cold. The road ahead would still have challenges. But for the first time in years, Brent believed that everything was going to be all right. He had made the right choice. And the right choice had finally led him home. This story teaches us that integrity and character are not weaknesses, but powerful strengths that define who we are and ultimately determine our success. When faced with a choice between personal gain and doing what's right, the decision we make reveals our true values and sets the course for our future. Brent's willingness to sacrifice his immediate interests to help a stranger in need, even when it seemed to cost him everything, demonstrated the kind of moral courage that truly matters in life. The story shows that while shortcuts and selfish choices might seem advantageous in the moment, they carry hidden costs that eventually come to light, whereas acts of genuine compassion and selflessness create a foundation of trust and respect that opens doors we never knew existed. Most importantly, it reminds us our children and those around us are always watching, learning not from what we say, but from what we do when faced with difficult choices, and that the example we set through our actions is the greatest legacy we can leave behind. So here's the real question. Did you subscribe yet? Thousands of people will listen to this story and won't subscribe. Please don't be that person. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My dad said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show him that these tales matter. Please subscribe to this channel, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. And here's what I need to know. Do you want part 2?